Hi everyone, welcome back to Manic Minds. As ever, this is a quick trigger warning for the following video. So we are going to be discussing bipolar disorder mainly in this video, and it is a very raw account of especially Nikki's lived experiences of the condition. So as ever, please keep yourself safe out there. There will be some resources, hopefully linked to the video. And if you do want to check us out on WordPress, then you should find a link to that site in the bio as well, with some useful hints and tips on there. So yeah, enjoy the video, everyone. Hope you're doing well out there. If you do enjoy it, then please do consider subscribing. It is free and it does really help us out. But yeah, hope you're having a great weekend, guys, and enjoy the video.
Hello.
Again, continue our march down the plethora of mental health conditions.
Yeah. At this point, are we just playing a game of go through my diagnosis until we run out of ideas?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've probably got about 10 videos then.
Should see us through till Christmas.
Yeah, before we have to start getting creative.
But no. So today is another potentially triggering episode. So we're going to be talking about bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I know that you have your own lived experience of.
I'm going to try not to be insensitive, try not to crack too many horrendous jokes.
Well, I think you can get away with it if you actually have the condition. So I think, it's a fairly, I say well known, it's something that a lot of people have heard of, but not necessarily exactly what it entails and what it means. I don't know, do you want to start with a quick rundown of what bipolar disorder actually is?
Most people understand it to be mood swings, which essentially is, but there's a lot more underlying that. It's easier to describe it as if you just say, like, I suffer with bipolar disorder. I swing from one side to the other very rapidly. Sometimes takes minimal to make me go one way or the other, but there is like so much more. So there's bipolar 1. So with bipolar 1, you have to have manic episodes that last for longer than 7 days. And that normally comes with things like psychosis, which for that, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about psychosis because, we spent an hour a couple of weeks ago talking about it. So don't want to, be a dead horse. Bipolar 2, which is what I'm diagnosed with, which is quite interesting because with bipolar 2, you don't get psychosis, which obviously I do have psychosis, but it comes under transient. So there's medical reasons behind that I could spend forever trying to explain. But bipolar 2, you don't get full-blown manic episodes, you'll get hypermanic episodes. There is a slight difference, although in my experience, I can't really quite tell because I have hypermania. And if that's just hypermania, I do not want to experience full-blown mania. And then you've got, which I'm going to butcher the attempt of pronouncing because I've never been able to pronounce it,
Cyclothymia.
Thank you, because my brain cannot. Listen, my dyslexic ass can't figure that word out.
I said it with such confidence, but it's a word that I learned literally about 5 minutes
ago. So that's like a milder form of bipolar disorder where you've got mood swings, but they're not as intense. It tends not to be. I don't have this disorder, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm trivializing it because I'm not. But basically my understanding is that it's less damaging towards your life. And essentially the higher you go up the scale, the more you tend to find that there's long-term or more diverse damage to your life as a whole.
Is it a matter of duration and intensity of episodes?
Thing is, when it comes to bipolar diagnosis, from my understanding, I was diagnosed with bipolar at 18. It was the first kind of feather in my cap on my diagnostic journey. But I've always the way I've always understood it is that they struggle a lot to diagnose bipolar disorder because there's so much crossover with things like EUPD, even ADHD, autistic tendencies. A lot of those kind of things come under symptoms of bipolar disorder as well. So it's quite hard for them to get right a lot of the time with diagnosis. A lot of people with bipolar disorder either get diagnosed quite early in life and then the diagnosis changes throughout their life. Like me, I'm a prime example of that. Went in, diagnosed at 18 with bipolar. 5 years later, that diagnosis changed to include other things, and then it's kind of gone through its journey there. I know I've got friends who have being diagnosed ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, their diagnosis changes to bipolar, vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was first going through my assessment, the first thing they said to me was, we think you've got ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, all right, okay. Like, I remember at the time thinking, thank the Lord, because at the time the logic was, that's a hell of a lot easier to handle than bipolar. But then, when they actually looked into it further, like, no, you're bipolar as fuck you. And I'm like, yeah, I've been being told that since I was about 13. I wouldn't worry about it. I was kind of aware.
Is that the official diagnosis?
Bipolar as fuck, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you read my transcript with my diagnostic criteria and everything on it, it literally says bipolar AF.
That's handy. So you say you were 18 when you were first diagnosed.
Yep.
How much did you know about the condition before you were diagnosed with it?
Literally just that it was mood swings.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I'd seen on like telly, essentially, which was, I mentioned it briefly the other week, bipolar in Stacey on EastEnders. That was literally my understanding of bipolar disorder. I only ended up looking into it a little bit more because so many people kept saying to us, you've got bipolar, that I was like, one or two people say to you, you can kind of let it slide. When you're getting to the point where you can no longer count on your hands how many people keep saying to you, you've got bipolar, you kind of start thinking, is there a possibility I've got bipolar here? And then, obviously, my journey through bipolar diagnosis came off the back of walking into a doctor's office and going, hi, I hear voices.
Yeah.
But,
you were already kind of in, for want of a better word, like the mental health system by that time. But by the time you were 18,
kind of, but actually not really. Like I'd been through counselling at school, and then I turned 18 in the October, and in the February I thought, right, I've had enough of this, and I walked into the doctor's office and said, hi, I hear voices, and they got me straight into early intervention in psychosis, or the EIP team. And it was there where, when I was given allocated a care coordinator and he came out to see us and that, and they were waiting for us to see a psychiatrist, that was when he said, like, hang on, there's something more at play here, because just off coming to see you twice, there's a drastic difference in you over the space of a couple of days. Never mind, like, if we keep going, so we'll get you in for a full assessment.
Yeah.
And I do remember being assessed and coming out of the assessment very frustrated because I didn't feel like anybody had actually listened to a word that I'd said. But I'm going to park that because I can rant about that for far too long.
Yeah. So, as we say every episode, this is based on lived experience. We're not trained in speak about these sorts of things too generally. So again, from your lived experience, if we just start looking at sort of symptoms of bipolar. So you've already mentioned changes in mood. So how would you sort of differentiate between someone who has changing moods but wouldn't necessarily have bipolar, and then someone who would be diagnosed with it?
That's like a really difficult, because that's something that right. I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder nearly 11 years ago. I still struggle to tell the difference between a normal mood swing and a bipolar swing or an EUPD swing. Okay. Like, being able to differentiate between the three is something that's really difficult, and it has caused me issues in general day-to-day life where, say, I'll have an interaction with someone and I feel myself rage inside, and I have to park that emotion and carry out in my head, hey, have I just jumped my primary emotion to jump straight to secondary, which for me, my secondary emotion is always anger. This is something that, like, I learned in therapy, that I tend to jump a primary emotion and go straight to anger. Or is this a normal feeling that any neurotypical would have?
Yeah.
Like, would anyone who doesn't have this disorder or have these diagnoses or have these problems in their life feel the way I'm feeling now? Therefore, it's a normal human emotion. I'm allowed to just feel it and move on. I don't have to do any work with it.
Yeah.
Being able to tell the two apart, it's very, very difficult. And I've seen that put me in situations with friends, with partners, with anything, where I come back 2 weeks later and go, hey, I'm still pissed about that. And people are like, could you not have said something at the time? I'm like, no, because at the time, quite frankly, I wanted to knock your teeth down your throat. So I thought that actually the best way to handle that was to walk away and come back when I was calm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would very much like to get into bipolar rage at some point, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people who have bipolar will understand the term bipolar rage.
I was going to say, I assume you meant getting into talking about it rather than actually displaying it.
Yeah, oh no, I don't. I try my hardest not to display bipolar rage. It's something that I still feel, but I don't really display often.
Yeah, it's the point that when we're talking about mental health, it's really old-fashioned to think about, people have condition A, the next person doesn't have any of that condition. Like it's a scale. There are some, symptoms of different conditions that people would have that are quite short-lived, I guess, so they don't get picked up as an indication of anything. So
I mean, some people go through pretty much their whole lives and don't get diagnosed with bipolar till they're in like their 40s, because it has impacted their life, but not in as obvious ways, like like you just said there. So for instance, an episode, you don't know how long an episode's going to last. I've seen me have episodes that last 72 hours. I've seen me have episodes that last 6 months. Like, you don't know. There's no consistency with it at all. I mean, you can manage it through like skills and things like that, but like there is absolutely zero consistency to it at all. I mean, the biggest thing is working out your own triggers and going from there. Like,
so obviously we talked about the changes in mood, so like the high periods and like the low periods. Do you want to talk a little bit about the sort of the felt kind of experience of the two? So when you've been in quite a low mood and
I mean, I'm just conscious that one thing that I definitely do not want to do, and I will stress, that mania or hypermania sounds fantastic. On the surface, it sounds amazing. And to be honest with you, when you live in it, amazing. You do not want to come down off that high. You're very well aware in the moment that the higher you go, the harder you're going to fall. So you want that high to last as long as physically possible, because especially if like you go, for instance, like if I know I've gone up to a +5 on the scale, I know that when I crash, I'm crashing all the way down to a -5 on a mood scale. Like, if I go up to a +3, then I know I'm probably not going to go that low. It's the same, but it's the same with the low. When you come down, you know that at some point you're going to shoot.
Yeah.
Being aware of that is both terrifying and exciting.
Yeah.
Because when you're low and you feel so low that, the only things making sense in your head is suicide, is self-harm, is all of the horrendous things, all the risk factors that come into play, you're praying for the shoot. You want to go up, because you're like, if I don't go up soon, I'm not going to go up at, like, well, bluntly, I'm going to go off something rather than. But when you're up a height and you're up high, a lot of the time, for me personally, I don't realise I'm high until it's too late to do anything about it, in which case all it is managing bringing it back down, because when it comes back down, I know if I don't manage it, I'm going to shoot through the ground pretty fucking rapidly, rather than like a nice kind of, like, when you jump out of a plane, right, and you've got
wait. I do not know what it's like to jump out of a plane.
Okay, I do.
Okay.
You've got about your 40 seconds of free fall, which is without a doubt the most exhilarating experience that I've ever had in my life. And that is the closest thing that I can compare being hypermanic to, essentially. Like, it's free fall. Problem is, if your parachute wasn't going to go off, like, you pull the string and it's not going, the panic will kick in of, I'm going to go through the floor. So that's essentially what it's like when you start coming back down. You know that you're coming down quickly, and you're gonna go through the floor. And like, for me personally, it's been using things like CBT skills, and like just learning my own triggers and all that sort of shit to guarantee my parachute goes off and descending a low at a slower speed that I've got more control over, essentially.
Yeah.
And that is how I would describe like the difference between just crashing into depression and letting yourself go into it. It sounds like what I'm saying is it's going to happen, so just let it happen.
Mm.
To an extent, yeah. Like when you start coming down from mania or from hypermania, you know you're going into depression. It's just a God-given right, but it's about doing everything you can to stop that going down right the way down to like a -5. It's trying to keep it at like a -3.
Yeah. Very useful information for both people who suffer from bipolar disorder and people who are about to jump out the plane.
Yeah. Would highly recommend if you want to.
The plane.
Yeah, not suffering with bipolar. Yeah, but I would highly recommend the jumping out the plane.
You like to cover all bases on this. And again, like I'm only using this analogy because of someone who's, relatively ill-educated on it, but it sounds a little bit like when you go out drinking, like the high you get from being drunk and the impulsivity when you're drunk, the lack of inhibition, things like that, and also knowing that the next day you're going to feel like crap, you're going to have a hangover or come down or whatever. Is it a little bit like that? Like you sort of, when you're drunk, you're experiencing the high and you're enjoying it, and
yeah, kind of, yeah. Because I suppose like what you said there about like risk-taking behaviour and impulsivity when you've had a drink.
Yeah,
very much so. Like the risk factor doesn't exist. Like if, for instance, when I am in a perfectly, I hate using this word, but it's how it's described, when I'm in a perfectly normal state of mood, I can look at a situation and go like, hey, this is the risk factor, this is where it sits on the scale, does the benefit outweigh the risk? And weigh up like anyone would whether or not it's worth doing.
Yeah.
When you're manic, your brain in a normal state might assess a risk factor of a 5, but my manic brain is saying risk factor of 1.
Yeah.
Same as when you're drunk. When you've had a drink, things sound like a good idea. We've all, like, look at the running joke, like when you're in a group of people and you're drunk and you plan this like amazing holiday together, you never get on the holiday. Yeah. Like you just don't do it. But it's the impulsivity of like, hey, oh my God, I've got this amazing idea. Why don't we do it? Differences with mania. If someone goes like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Yeah, we should go to Tenerife. Okay, we're going to Tenerife now because now I've got my laptop and I am full on. I'm hyper focused. Like we're going to Tenerife. Doesn't matter how I'm paying for it. Like the money in the bank situation, not a problem. Like overspending, that's a big problem for people with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
But yeah, like impulsivity and irritability. Irritability is a big thing in manic states as well.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned money because, I have a bit of a background in working in debt management. And, we look out for risk factors like that, certain vulnerabilities that people have. And bipolar, I've heard so many people tell me that, the reason I'm in this position is because I was in a manic episode and I didn't know, I didn't care how much I would spend.
Yeah.
It was,
Oh, like been there, done that, wore the t-shirt. Like it is. Thing is, for instance, any rational person can go, hey, my bill priority order is mortgage/rent, council tax, gas and electric, water bill, AMTB license, food shopping, necessities essentially.
Yeah.
When you are manic, you will look and go, what do I really need to pay? And most of the time, the answer to that question is my phone bill. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to live forever. Like, a big one for me when I'm manic is fuck the system. I'm not, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, what's the worst that they're going to do? Like, and because you're in that state of mind where you think that you know better than anybody else and that you can get yourself out of anything, you'll be in a situation where you're going, hey, does it really matter? Like, big one for me was, hey, does it really matter if I pay that bill? Because you know what, next month I'll just pay a double bill. I'll just pay it twice, it's fine. Problem with that is, for instance, does your manic episode end by the time the double bill's due? Not necessarily. Secondly, when the double bill's due round, can you afford to pay the double bill? No. And that's how you accumulate debt, large amounts of debt. you know, like the impulsive spending, like I mean, there was a meme went around on Facebook and that years ago, and it's like my depressive ass trying to enjoy all the things that my manic ass bought, and it's the Grim Reaper on the flamingo inflatable. Yeah. That literally, well, the first time I saw that, I cried with laughter because it's so accurate. Like, you come out of a manic episode, you're skint as fuck, you're depressed because you've literally hit self-destruct on your life, you know, like you've destroyed everything in your path, you've burnt bridges that there's no coming back from, and you're sitting there with an inflatable flamingo. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've never bought an inflatable flamingo, but like I have bought some stupid things while manic, like I've spent money on things that I absolutely shouldn't spend money on. Like, I used to have a thing for gnomes. I may still have a thing for gnomes, as you're aware, but
Really?
yeah, what, the 3 gnomes in your garden? But yeah, like, you know, like little silly things that, and the thing is, for me, luckily, my bank account never allowed for me to spend thousands of pounds on silly things. Some people who suffer with bipolar, their bank account does allow for them to do things like that. I mean, my bank account's never really allowed for us to spend more than £100 on something.
And the way like money works now, like, you know, it's not that difficult to go out and get a credit card.
Oh,
like,
not at all.
Even if the main banks are refusing you because of your credit, there's places you can get loans and credit cards from that are less likely to refuse you.
Oh, like if you Google bad credit loans, there are thousands upon thousands offering up to 10 plus grand in cash, in your bank account, if you can pass the certain criteria. And while I would never say, I mean, I don't want to get down too far down this rabbit hole, but while I would never say that you shouldn't offer people bad credit, like, you know, loans, because sometimes you do need it, they're not very well like looked at. I mean, I have credit cards. Probably technically, I mean, I was issued my credit card years ago, and luckily for me, like I had the people around us who helped us to stop it from going too far. But you know, like I probably should never have been issued a credit card at the time because I did not have enough capacity around managing my own finances.
Yeah. And these are real everyday like issues that people will face. And it's important that we talk about them.
Because it's even little things like, you know, like just on the money front, for instance, if you're in a normal state of mind, you can look at your bank balance and go, hey, I have 30 quid to last me a week, but I know for a fact that my £20 phone bill's coming out on Monday and then I get paid on Friday. Okay, so I'll leave my money in my bank account because I know technically I've only got £10 to last me a week. No, because I'm getting paid on Friday and I know for a fact they're not going to cut my phone off before I can pay the bill. So what does it matter? I've actually got 30 quid, so I'll go and get a takeaway. I'll go and get a bottle of vodka. And don't get me wrong, that's not like necessarily just bipolar behaviour. Like a lot of people do that, but like that's like a small down version of what having bipolar mania can do to you financially.
You know, would you feel comfortable talking about how you've navigated like the world of work whilst dealing with these different disorders?
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable talking about it. It's been hard, to be honest, because I don't really know how to put it into words, because funny enough, I found navigating the world of work easier when I was less self-aware. Being self-aware and navigating the world of work, it's infuriating. And I think it's more infuriating because you know what you need to be able to do something or to be able to manage your mood better. And sometimes those basic things are just not applicable to your career path.
Yeah.
You know, for instance, if I was a surgeon and I need 10 minutes, right, well, I'm in the middle of performing heart surgery. I can't just go and take 10 minutes. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
You know, and granted, I'm very well aware that that's like an extreme example, but I think a lot of places that maybe is, you know, aren't as serious as an environment as a hospital. If you take my experience, obviously I've said before, I worked in call centres for years. A lot of call centre management treat the call centre like it's a hospital. Like, you know, like if you come off a call and you're like, hey, like that call was really triggering for me, all this different shit. I need 10 minutes. A lot of the time you get a no. And for me, the one thing that I have always done when it comes to work is I always think about things from a business perspective. Because, like, for instance, if I know I work in a call centre and I'm on a team of 30 people and I have to hand a sick note in because I'm having an episode and I'm off for 2 weeks, it does, I am aware of what that does to my team. However, when I come back in and do a return to work, drilling that point into me is not going to make it better. Actually, what you're doing is the little bit of work that, like, because 9 times out of 10, when I come back to work, I'm not actually ready to come back to work. It's called sick pay sucks. So now I have to come back before I'm actually ready. And you sitting there ranting on about, well, like, if you're off again, then, like, we'll have to do X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. I understand that you have to explain that to me because that is part of your job role. Check your fucking tone.
Yeah.
Like, it comes back to what we've said in the last few episodes about being mindful and just, like, 9 times out of 10 people understand the impact they're having on the team and they already feel like crap about it. They already understand how much harder they are making their colleagues' lives by having to take 10 minutes, by having to split their breaks, by having to be off work unwell. But how come if I call you and say, hey, I have a migraine, I can't even open my eyes, it's, oh my God, bless your heart, like, get yourself some medication, stay in a dark room, get yourself some sleep, like, I hope you feel better soon. But when I call you and say, hey, my brain isn't very well today, it's, well, it's literally, you hear the pause of, like, okay, but why does that mean you can't come into work today? For me personally, I don't normally, throughout my whole life, I haven't really called in sick much because of my bipolar. I've been quite lucky in the sense of when I've had to be off sick, it's psychosis related, it's not bipolar related. Obviously the two intertwine, but, like, I really don't want to go into a fucking rant about the work, about the work environment. For me personally, the best thing that I did was go self-employed. I was lucky enough to be in a position where I had enough support around us to be able to go, right, okay, I can go self-employed. I can work part-time in this little job, and then I doing AI and stuff, and then I can move on and set up my own businesses and primarily work for myself. And that's allowed me the freedom to be able to be in touch with my mental health more as well.
Yeah. So I guess the next logical part of this discussion then is thinking about treatments. You've talked really well about the lived experience of it, but for anyone who's going through a similar sort of thing and is wondering what kind of treatments are out there and what have been effective, again, lived experience episode, but do you want to talk about some of the treatments, interventions that you've had?
So in terms of treatment and intervention, like there's 2 different pathways you can go down this. There's the very clinical route, and then there's the kind of self-help backed by clinical studies. I'm a big believer in intertwining the two, because at the end of the day, there comes a point in your life that you have to take responsibility for yourself. You can look at your life on paper and go, hey, like I've had a shitload of trauma and I have, like, I don't deserve any more shit. But, or like, shit, your upbringing, all that shit. But at a certain point, you are responsible for yourself. Like, you have to put the work in. The world doesn't owe you shit. And I'm sorry that might be hard to hear, and that might come off like I'm being a dick. But the world doesn't owe you shit.
Oh, yeah. The way I would put that is the world doesn't really care what happens to you.
I've said it before about the whole, like, it doesn't matter how I feel, the world don't stop spinning, me rent still needs paid on the first of the month. Like, it's that kind of thing. Like, capitalism doesn't give a fuck. So, like, you have to be responsible for yourself. You can't just rely purely on doctors to make you better. Newsflash, there is no magic pill. I wish there was, because if I could have taken a magic pill at 18 to make bipolar go away, I would have. If you'd have handed that to me on a plate, I wouldn't have even questioned the side effects. I'd just taken it. But so there's the clinical route. Clinical route is a lot more talk and therapy centered. So your CBT, that's the main treatment. So cognitive behavioral therapy, that's about, like, essentially, correct me if I'm wrong here, because this is more your domain, but where you're repatterning your thought processes essentially. The one that always sticks in my mind is the one that I was shown where it's empty. It's a messy cupboard full of towels, and it's like, that's what your brain currently looks like. What we're going to do is we're going to take all the towels out, we're going to fold them neatly and put them back, and now they're all in logical order, and you can access them when you want to, rather than them just like, that's like a very intrusive thought kind of thing. So there's that. DBT is really good. However, DBT is on the NHS, it is very hard to access. You have to hit certain criteria. There's not many people trained in DBT. Like in private, it does cost a lot of money. But for me personally, DBT really helped. It's effective a lot with personality disorders as well. It's all about interpersonal relationship management, reacting to your moods, learning about your primary and your secondary emotions. I mean, I know I mentioned about how I tend to jump my primary and jump straight to anger. Like, I learned that through DBT. Medication comes under that umbrella as well. You know, mood stabilizers. Lamotrigine did it for me. That was a really, really good mood stabilizer for me. That worked as a temporary solution while I did the therapy. I now don't have to take that anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have access to it when necessary, but I don't have to take it anymore because the therapy does the work for me essentially, which brings you nicely into your self-help, because now I don't see a therapist. I mean, I see a counsellor once a week, which isn't to do with my bipolar. That's just because I'm a very strong advocate of seeing someone who you can talk to openly and honestly. So self-help wise, you've got maintenance. Maintenance is so good. Like, I will preach that maintenance is good until the day that I die.
I'm smirking a little bit because obviously my capacity as a counsellor, and like, I do try to preach maintenance a lot, and it can be difficult to get across how helpful it can be, probably because it's so perceived as so basic.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm going to say what I think a lot of people would like to say that probably can't. It requires you admitting that the basic tasks that you believe you should be able to do, and you have been conditioned by society to believe that you should just be able to do, that you can't do them without a prompt. And you have to admit that you are pretty much at rock bottom. And at that point, you've got two options. You can sit there, or you can try this. And as somebody who's been there, who spent the first, when did I actually implement maintenance? I must have been 24 by the time I actually bothered to implement maintenance.
So it's really, I mean, maybe for people who don't get the reference, so, you know, essentially what is maintenance and what is your experience of it?
If you hadn't have interrupted us, I was getting there.
All right. It's bipolar rage. But,
No, you'd know. So with maintenance, it's essentially things that you have to do every day to maintain your wellness. That's my understanding from what I do. How it was explained to me by Laura was always a case of, don't overcomplicate it. Don't think big. Little goals, baby steps to big changes. You don't make big changes overnight. I mean, you didn't get your degree overnight. I didn't get my degree overnight. It took years of hard work. Newsflash, that's what this is. It's being consistent with something that you do not want to be consistent with. So for me, my maintenance falls under very basic tasks. Every single day, no matter what, I clean my teeth. I get washed. I change my clothes. I make my bed. I go outside for 15 minutes. Now, that all sounds very fucking basic. How hard that is to do when you feel like shit. No, it's just, and the thing is, what I really want to stress with that is, it doesn't matter if you make your bed 2 minutes before you get into it. Your bed was made. It doesn't matter if you change your clothes into fresh pajamas. Still fresh clothes. It does not matter if your outside is sitting on the front doorstep with a bloody cigarette. Like, it's fine. You have still done it. Baby steps, big changes, small goals.
It's such a useful point, and I'm sure that we'll have episodes that go into this a bit more depth. But I just wanted to reflect on that point of, you know, often the problem with people is they don't aim low enough.
Yeah.
So like it's very easy to sit there in a depressive episode and start comparing yourself to people that you know, and you think, well, so and so has no issue with maintaining a job every day, like take it in their stride, and they don't have to talk themselves out of getting out of bed every morning. Fine, that's them. If you want to get there, you're not going to get there overnight. You're not going to sort of suddenly leap over this sort of imaginary sort of path in your way. And often it is, aim a bit lower. So if you're going to judge a day by somebody else's standards, then more often than not, you're going to be disappointed. If you're going to judge your day on what you've done and what you've achieved, even if it's sort of comparing yourself to kind of what you were able to do yesterday. So if yesterday you were too depressed, stayed in bed all day, didn't talk to anyone, okay, fine, you've had that sort of a day. Tomorrow's a new day. Can you manage to get out of bed and brush your teeth? Can you manage to maybe have a couple of minutes at least with some fresh air?
That was a big thing for me. I mean, I remember being told years ago by someone very close to me that basically stop overthinking it. Little goals, because it's still a fucking achievement.
Yeah.
If all you have done in that day is go downstairs and chuck a load of fucking washing in, you're winning.
Yeah.
If all you've done is do your dishes, if all you've done is make a fucking sandwich or a slice of toast, you are winning. Because guess what? Yesterday you couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Today you've done that. Small goals, baby steps, big changes.
Yeah.
We'll preach it till the cows come home, because with what you've just said there, I've been there. I remember like years ago, I mean, I'm talking over 3 years ago now, but I remember I used to lie in bed. I mean, I have a lot of friends who have high functioning depression. And I remember lying in bed and thinking, like, I can't keep doing this. Like, everybody around me, no matter how bad their mental health, can just do it. They can just get out of bed and go and just go and fucking crack on, and like as if nothing's the matter. And I remember lying there thinking, like, I have everything I need. I don't understand why I can't do this, because I remember lying there thinking, like, I understand logically that like all this trauma in my life has caused where I am now, but I'm not in that position anymore. So why can't I do it? Why can't I get out of bed? What is the problem here? And once I stopped comparing myself to other people, that really fucking helped.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's a couple of people who are very, very close to me who have acted as a very good support system. I remember being told very specifically, you're not broken. Nobody needs to fix you. You just need somebody to support you.
Yeah.
And you know what? That person was fucking right, because all it was, and I remember the same person saying it was, you cannot build a house on wobbly foundations. You need to get your foundations in place, and I'll watch you build a fucking mansion.
Yeah.
And he has. He helped me get my foundations in place, and he watched me build a mansion. It's exactly what happened.
Absolutely.
But just to backtrack to what you originally asked before we went on about maintenance and stuff, on the terms of for foundation level kind of stuff, because that's more what I want to cover. Foundation wise, there are a handful of skills that you can use that if you implemented them today, within 6 weeks you will see changes. Maintenance, big one. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the M word, mindfulness. Now, I'm very well aware that we're going to do an episode on this in the next couple of weeks, so I'm not going to preach on about it too much. I do not mean fucking meditation. If meditation works for you, great. I'm so happy for you. Meditation does not fucking work for me. I can't think of anything worse than sitting there and fucking meditating, because I'm just not going to do it. My brain will not allow me to do it. However, you can implement mindfulness in so many ways. I do mine while I'm cleaning my teeth. Twice a day, every day, 4 minutes total. 4 minutes of mindfulness every single day helps keep me level-headed. And literally all it is, I've got two different types of toothpaste. Each time you clean your teeth, alternate which toothpaste you use, concentrate on the flavour, the difference, the texture, the taste. That's all it is.
It's it's common for people to dismiss mindfulness.
Oh, I did for years.
And I think what people fully appreciate is that a lot of the coping techniques and strategies they've employed that have worked are grounded in mindfulness. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique we talked about last week was essentially a mindfulness, based intervention. So yeah,
most things are. In terms of those skills, like there's the stop skill. The stop skill's a very good one. That is what it says on the tin. Stop. Whatever you are doing, within reason. If you're holding a baby, don't just drop the fucking baby. Use your common sense. But just stop. When you feel an emotion heighten and you feel that, I'm going to use bipolar rage as an example because that for me personally is the one that comes on the fastest. When you feel that, boom, just stop. For me, I like to use the song that starts "Stop in the Name of Love."
Yeah.
Like that's how I get my brain to just stop, and then a couple of deep breaths, bring it back down. If I have to use 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to ground myself again before I can handle the situation, yes. The other one as well, walk away. If you can feel yourself getting to a point where you know that whole bite in your tongue thing ain't gonna happen, walk away. I don't care. I've had plenty of conversations with people where they've said to us, you can't just tell people to walk away because, we have to be adults in the mature world. I'm sorry, but I know myself well enough to know the difference. And I know that while you might think I'm immature for going, do you know what, I'm not in the headspace to deal with this right now. I'm going to go and take 5 and go and have a vape or have a cigarette or whatever. And I will come back and we can continue this conversation in 5 minutes when I've cooled off. You want to think I'm immature for that, that's perfectly fine. That is on you. Because I know that actually that is the mature thing for me to do. Because the immature thing for me to do would be to stand there and continue this conversation that results in me telling you what I really think because you don't want to know what I really think when I'm in a heightened mood. Because when I say really think, I don't actually think that. But when I'm in a heightened mood, I'm like, you've moved from white to black. I can't stand you right now. So you're going to get told every little thing that irritates me about you, every little thing that I know will pinpoint an insecurity is coming out my mouth to you.
And I think that comes a lot from, especially people in like a position of authority. Like if they genuinely want to have a meaningful conversation, if they're your manager and they want to talk about some issues at work that you're having, if they want to have that two-way conversation, they have to appreciate that. Otherwise, it's not a conversation. It's what do you call it? It's a bollocking. Essentially, like if you're a manager and you don't actually care about getting any feedback from the person you're speaking to, A, that's a really poor management style. But yeah, B, like just we'll wait to see what happens then. Because like workers are human beings, and if you push people to a certain extent, they will lash out. And if they're struggling with bipolar disorder, that is going to come a lot sooner than it would.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like being blindsided is a big one for me. I hate nothing more than being blindsided. You've got a problem, come and fucking talk to us about it immediately. Don't blindside me. Don't act perfectly fine with me all day and then pull me in 20 minutes before the end of the day to have a go at us about something I did 2 weeks ago. Don't do that. Because why have we just pretended all day that everything's perfect? Do you know what I hate? Oh, I've scheduled you in for a meeting at 3 o'clock, but it's nothing to worry about. When it fucking was. I hate that. Just be blunt, because you know what it is. If you want to preach, I want honesty from my employees, then I want honesty from my manager.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good sort of rundown of the kind of things that you can do to help yourself. Should we talk about, say, like the other side of that coin? So people that know or loved ones with bipolar disorder or many of these conditions we're talking about. Again, from a kind of lived experience perspective, like, is there anything you want to say about kind of people that you've been in close proximity with, things that you found helpful, things that you haven't found helpful?
I mean, I've got some very controversial opinions, to be perfectly honest.
This is a controversial podcast.
Yeah, so first of all, as somebody with bipolar disorder, I'm going to say it is extremely difficult to live with bipolar disorder. However, I am no stranger to the fact that it is very difficult to love somebody with bipolar disorder. That comes from my own experience of having people in my life who I love who've got bipolar disorder. And it also comes from the experience of having conversations with people who love me, who have said to me, like, hey, it is fucking hard. Like, I love you for who you are, but sometimes your illness just is, it's so much. It's so hard. And it is. And sometimes in the moment, as somebody with the disorder, when you're up a height, it can be hard to appreciate why what you're doing is harmful, or why it's difficult to live with. You know, like, especially when you're thinking, if you think like manic behavior, like think about the money situation. Like, you know, if you're in you're a team, you're a partnership, and you have a manic episode and spend shitloads of money, now your partner's got to pick up the pieces because your partner's thinking, how the fuck are we paying the rent because you've done this? Things like that, you know, like that's where a lot of like animosity and stuff like that can come about if you're not like openly communicating. I mean, like a big thing that helps, that's always worked for me since becoming aware of my own problems with money management and stuff, has been not having access to my bill account. That, I mean, I do now, but like years ago, like I did not manage paying bills because that was not my domain. I could not manage my money because of my mania. So I was allocated spending money essentially. But that took the weight off for me and for the other person, because it meant that they knew the bills were paid and I wasn't getting into trouble for blowing whatever money I had in my bank account. Because if I had £200 in my bank account and I knew I wasn't getting another £200 for another 4 weeks, right, well, tough, when it's gone, it's fucking gone. But I can go and spend that on an inflatable flamingo if I want. Like, it's not a problem because my bills are paid. You know, like you can mitigate these kind of things. It's a lot of things are about being honest with each other. Now, here's the controversial thing. In being honest with each other, you have to be honest with yourself too. If somebody is toxic for you and you are unwell when you are around them, you cannot manage your illness, or you know, like, they make you act out of character from no matter what side of the coin you sit on, as somebody with a mental health condition, somebody without one. It is okay to hold your hands up and say, I can't do this. I can love you from a distance. I can't have you in my life. Again, I've been there. It's hard. It's horrible. I've been on both sides of that. I've been in the position where I've had my old best friend say to me, hey, we're bad for each other when we're around each other. I love you with all my heart, but I cannot be around you. We can't be friends anymore. Soul destroying. But guess what? I moved on. I got over it. I lived. I've been on the other side where I've had to say to somebody like, hey, I can manage my illness perfectly when you're not around. The moment you're around, I act out of character. I can't control this anymore when you're around. And it's because you know my buttons and you push them. And hey, if you're not willing to work on you, then we can't be in each other's lives. That's number one. Very controversial, but it is perfectly okay to cut somebody out of your life because they are damaging for you. It's hard to do and you might not like it at first, but newsflash, you will live. You'll get over it. Number two, just on the honesty front, is when somebody's in like a more of like what I'm going to describe as a lull, because I don't like using the word normal. So like a lull where there's more clarity in their thinking. Sit down with each other and have an open and honest conversation. Like the bill thing. Hey, when you're manic, what happens is you blow loads of money. And now I want to point out, don't fucking come at it the way that I'm coming at it now, because you're just going to wind somebody up. But hey, so we'll try that one again. Hey, I've noticed this pattern. When you go into a manic episode, you get really excited and you want to do all these cool things, which you know I really enjoy doing with you. I really like spending time with you, and doing all these cool things is fantastic, and it's what I want to be able to do. However, sometimes in that situation, we kind of forget about the bills. So what I'm proposing is, why don't we try this? We'll set up a bill account. We'll both put money into it every month, and it doesn't get touched. We don't access it. You don't have access to it. The only access that I have to it is on my phone to make sure that bills are covered every month. You know, nobody takes money out of it. And then that means that what's in your bank account's your money. All of our bills, all the food, shopping, everything comes out this one account. Then it means that what you've got in your bank account's yours to spend on whatever you want. And what I've got in my bank account's mine to spend on whatever I want. That completely mitigates a manic episode bill factor. Completely. Granted, I know, like, obviously some people aren't going to be as fucking receptive to that, and you have got to really think about, I mean, if you love somebody with bipolar, you know what they're like. You know how to approach them. For me, very much like tough love is a good way to approach me. don't be accusing, because like that, I mean, to be fair, I don't think you have to have bipolar to get you back up. If somebody comes at you being like, you're this, you're that, you get very defensive very quickly. But that's a big one. Like, just, I know, like we say it, I feel like we say it every time we record, but honesty, just be open about your feelings, but listen, match, like, I wasn't saying match your energy, but actually what I want to say is don't match the person's energy. If, now this works on both sides as well. It depends how self-aware you are. Like for me, like because of how much work I've done, I am very self-aware. You come to me and you come in at 80%, and you're coming in hard and you're being fucking arsey with me. I want to get arsey back with you immediately and come at you at 80 as well. But because I've done the work, I know that that's not going to help anybody in this situation. Actually, what's going to happen is we're going to go from 80 to 120 like that. Whereas if I come in at 10 and I bring the tone down, you're going to bring your tone down. Because if you think about it, as if me and you have an argument and you're shouting at me and I'm talking to you in this voice, like this level, and I'm being very respectful, you're going to feel like a dick pretty rapid shouting at us, aren't you? So you're going to bring it down. The same way that if you come at me like this and then I respond to you by shouting at you, you're going to fire up to shouting at me very quickly as well, because it's like, don't fucking speak to me like that. Bring it down. Keep it calm. Keep it cool. That 5-minute thing, seriously. If you're having a conversation about trying to mitigate the long-term effects or the damage that it's that like, having an episode is doing to the people in your life, if you need to take 5 minutes, take 5 minutes. And I'm going to say it, if somebody can't respect that you need 5 minutes in order to be able to have an open, honest, truthful conversation that will long-term benefit your relationship with them, no matter in what capacity, don't bother. You're wasting your time.
And that works for like both sides.
Oh yeah, both sides. Yeah.
It's like if your partner suffers from bipolar and you know that you need 5-10 minutes, otherwise you're going to start matching their energy, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking that 5 minutes. Oh,
there is absolutely nothing wrong with saying no matter what side, to turn around and saying, hey, right now I need 5 minutes, or I need 10 minutes, or let's just park this and come back to it. The only thing I will say is always put a time frame on it, because otherwise you end up in a situation where essentially, like, I mean, you see it all the time in movies and stuff, don't you, where like they're going to one partner's parents' house and they're arguing in the car, and then the knock at the door like, hey, like acting like everything's all right, and then they don't pick the argument back up, and it's 4 days later, and now all of a sudden I'm pissed off because you've not done the dishes, when actually I'm still pissed off about what conversation from 4 days ago because we've not picked it back up.
Yes, I think there is an element of controversy, I suppose, to what we're saying, because I think our society seems to value this, like sticking with people and not giving up on people. And that all sounds lovely, but there are limits to that we have to be honest about. So even if you've spent years and years with somebody, you have that kind of history together, if at any point in that journey you realise, like, actually this is detrimental to us both, walk away from it. Like, like there's going to be life after them. There's going to be different experiences and different people you're going to meet. I know that we're sort of stripping romance away from society at the moment, but like,
it is okay to change your mind.
Yeah.
Bluntly. It is okay to change your mind and decide this isn't what you want out of your life, no matter what it is, whether it's career, partner, friend, fucking family. Like, you're allowed to turn around and go, do you know what, this doesn't work for me anymore. This no longer serves me.
This is why, like, this sort of work that we're talking about, this sort of therapy work, interventions, techniques, like, yes, hugely beneficial for certain mental disorders, but they're just really good life lessons as well. Like, if you're, quote Plato, like, the unexamined life isn't worth living. Like, if you just go through life without questioning and asking yourself, is this still good for me? Is this still healthy for me? And I suppose the one, I don't want to call it a benefit, but like the people who've gone through things like bipolar disorder, they're more used to that sort of questioning. And actually that to me strikes me as a much more healthy way of going through life than just, I guess, kind of sticking with the first thing that you come across and believing that's going to change your life.
The only thing that I do want to say on that, and it comes back to impulsivity as somebody with bipolar disorder. Maybe don't go dumping your long-term partner just because they've said no to something that you want to do. Like just throwing that out there. Like, you know, the impulsivity works on that level as well. Yeah. Like my whole thing, and this isn't something that I've used for that big of a deal. It's more because it's more what I've used on a smaller scale, but it works on every scale. To control my impulsivity, if I want something and I'm like, hey, that's not a necessity, I just really want it. Quite often I'll park it for 3 days. And if in 3 days' time I still want it, then I'll buy it. Now that works the same on big things. If I'm all of a sudden out to say I've been perfectly in love, no problem, and all of a sudden I go, don't particularly like you anymore, you're getting on my nerves, I'm just going to park that emotion for a few days. Like, I'm going to be aware of it. I'm going to allow myself to feel it. But I'm not just going to walk in and suddenly go like, hey, we're breaking up off the back of a 2-minute fucking thought. I'm going to use my common sense here and think like, hey, we've been together X amount of years. I'm not just going to go like, bang. I'm going to...
I think I should probably clarify what I meant now. I didn't mean...
I know, I knew that's not what you meant.
Like, people with bipolar that have done this sort of work that we're talking about, that's not just going to help you manage your bipolar, that's going to help you with
interpersonal relationship skills. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic stuff. More to come on that later.
I mean, there's things that we're talking about and we're touching on that I think, you know, people might want us to go a bit deeper on, and I think we will in future episodes. But as a kind of a list for people to kind of take away from this, I think it's really useful.
I would highly recommend just, like I say, the stop skill, the maintenance. Again, I hate saying it, but a bit of exercise. Like the amount of work. Like I started hitting the gym beginning of last year, and I mean, for me that came off the back of I've got a fucked up shoulder. So that was why I had to start going. But now I swear by it. Running. Boxing's a good one for me. I know a lot of people that have bipolar disorder are a big fan of boxing because it's a good way to release some anger. And obviously some serotonin, which, you know, we're all a big fan of. I'm just trying to fire through rapid, because what I'm thinking is so on the maintenance side on our blog, I will post, because I have my maintenance, an actual full-blown maintenance list, which breaks down and explains how to do maintenance and what I use and things like that. I'll post that to our blog.
How would somebody come across this blog?
That would be Manic Minds at wordpress.com, I believe. Yes. Alongside our Instagram, Manic Minds Pod. Since apparently we're now plugging this.
But look, I think, you know, this is, again, like, it's been really useful for me as the person coming into this, knowing a lot less about the disorder than you. And like we always say, obviously, thank you for using your own experience, because it's not an easy thing to do, but I think a lot of people will benefit from it. Is there anything that you kind of want to cover before we...
I'm so glad you asked, because I thought I was going to have to interrupt you and I didn't want to repeat. Right. So the only thing is that when it comes to getting an assessment for bipolar disorder and getting diagnosed, the big thing is they're going to ask you you'll be familiar with this, the questionnaire. How have you been feeling over the last 2 weeks? Yeah, I fucking hate that thing, because you can manipulate the fuck out of it if you're familiar with it. Anywho, you will be told to chart your mood. It's something that you'll be told to do. If you can walk into that assessment with a few months worth of mood charts, it just mitigates some problems, but it also helps massively for realizing your triggers. So for me personally, I didn't like, you can get loads of them. There's colouring in books where you can, there's like every day for the week, you'll colour in like a section of the picture, and then at the end of the week, it's this nice little pretty picture, and then you move on to the next week, so on and so forth. For me, I literally just built a spreadsheet, because I did not, I say I didn't have the time to colour in. I just didn't have the fucking patience to sit and colour in. So I built a very bog standard spreadsheet. I would print it off on the last day of every month, ready for the first of the month. And it was literally +5 down to -5 along the side, with all the days of the week, all the days of the month at the top. Put an X at where you are. So if, for instance, I wake up and I'm at a +3 on the first, +3. Now, key point. If in the middle of the day my mood drastically alters, I'm going to go and fill it in again, and I'm going to put on the same day, like -4, for instance. I'm going to have a notepad next to it, and I'm going to make a quick note, first of the fourth, drop, and then what was going on at the time. Because a lot of the time with bipolar, I've found, when somebody says like, "Hey, what impacts your mood?" You go, nothing particular happens. It just changes. Now, something's happening. There is something triggering you. Granted, every now and then it does just come out of nowhere, but like most of the time, something's quite triggering for you. Stress is a really big one. For me, it's financial stress. Financial stress massively triggers psychosis in me. But like stress can be a really, really big trigger, and with that, if you start to notice a pattern, you can implement the skills to stop the pattern, which then helps balance you back out again anyway. Like, say, for instance, if you know financial stress is a big thing for you, right? Okay, is it a possibility that you can maybe be putting so much money away every month so that in the event that something happens and you do have to take 2 weeks off sick because of your bipolar, right? Okay, but I've got 2 months worth of my bills in my account, so now that financial stress isn't a problem. That's a mitigated fact. That kind of thing.
It's regaining like ownership over your disorder rather than being carried by it.
That was the big thing for me. It was personally the day I genuinely started my journey to get well was the day that I decided that I'd had enough. And I'm very well aware that for a lot of people that's not how it works. But if my mentality is transferable to help one other person, then I feel like I've done my job in speaking out about the way that I think. And personally for me, it was, I know this is a bit of a shitty way to end this, but I'm going to say it anyway. People with bipolar disorder over the course of their lifetime are 15 times more likely to kill themselves than a neurotypical. I refused to be a fucking statistic. That was all it was. There was a moment where I went, you know what it is? My life on paper, when you look at my life on paper, statistically, I should be dead. I should have OD'd. I should have took my own life. Bluntly, that is how it should work statistically. I don't particularly like doing things the way people want me to. So I wasn't going to be a statistic. And I decided, you know what? If I die fighting it till the bitter end, then I'm okay with dying. But if I die by rolling over and letting it take me, then absolutely fucking not. Now, that will not work for everybody. For me, I'm a very big believer in the fire in your stomach. And I just decided that the best way to do it was go, hey, you know, everybody who's doubted me my entire life can watch this. And that's what I did. I did the work. I worked goddamn hard. Because I know that while I'm sitting here making it sound easy, it's not. There's going to be days you don't want to get out of bed. There's going to be days where you want to kill yourself. There's going to be days where you think I am the best thing since sliced bread. There's going to be days where you think you're a god. And everything in between. If you are consistent with those basic skills, it'll get you by. It'll get you to the point where you're sat in front of the psychiatrist you need to be sat in front of. Find what works for you and run with it. I know I've seen it before on social media. People say, like, you know, if you need to live for your cat, it's okay to live for your cat. That's true. Find what will keep you going and run with it. For me, it was spite. Spite works. Great motivator. If it's your dog, your kid, your cat, your plants, like, fucking hell, if you get up out of bed every day just because you know you need to water your plants, I don't give a fuck that it was because you need to water your plants. It got you out of bed. You're winning at life. You are beating this. And I'm very well aware that I'm starting to get agitated because I just get so fucking wound up when people, like, and it's not people with a disorder. It's normally other people who are like, oh, like, they can't even get out of bed. Like, because they don't feel like they've got anything to get out of bed for. Like I said, if it's because you don't want your fucking sunflower in the garden to die, I don't care. It got you out of bed, didn't it? Find what motivates you and fucking run with it. It'll make your life. It'll make doing this shit every day a hell of a lot easier. Because I mean, I've been well for just over 2 years now, and well, some blips. We've had some blips along the way, obviously, but as a whole, like it's been very well managed for about 2-3 years now. And being able to go fuck you to people who've doubted me is 100% what gets me out of bed every day to this day. It's what gets me out of that house and fucking walking for 15 minutes a day. It's what's got us training for the Great North Run. Like, find, that saying, find what you love and let it kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Find what motivates you and let it motivate you.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to top that, so
good.
thank
I'm glad.
you so much for this episode today.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad that I just...
I know, as ever, there will be links and resources attached to this, but
just on that note, really quickly, I'm very well aware that we have not linked anything on the last 2 videos. However, please jump over to the Manic Minds blog on WordPress. If you're struggling to find it, you can find it via our Instagram bio. So please jump over there. I will be actively linking things on a weekly basis, and there'll be more information, more detailed information from both me and Daniel on random things that we both specialise in. So I've just put him on the spot because I didn't tell him he was going to be doing that.
Watch this space.
Yeah, well, as always, look after yourselves, reach out, speak to somebody that you know and trust, and don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Bye.